In Halacha Yud, it talks about renting and lending utensils before Shabbos. So in renting utensils, you have to divide it into two different categories. There are utensils that are used for a malacha, for forbidden labor, and then there are utensils that are used for permissible use. We learned last week that utensils that are used for forbidden labor, for malacha, you're not allowed to rent it out on Friday. However, you're allowed to rent it out earlier in the week on Thursday. Now, what would be the law? What's the law when you're renting out utensils that are used in for permissible use? Then the law is that you're allowed to rent it out even on Friday. Now about lending. Lending, the law is they're allowed to lend utensils, whether the utensils are used for forbidden labor or they're not used for forbidden labor, even on Friday, anytime during the week, as long as you lent out the utensils before Shabbos. Now let's see the halacha inside the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We're gonna pick up from where we left in the halacha, which is in middle of halacha 10 ulahashu. It's about 3.5 lines in the Maznayim Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. In the Maznayim Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it's on page 22. So now we're going to learn inside about lending utensils before Shabbos. The Kitzur, it says, ulahashu loy mutar filu be'erev Shabbos. Ba'afilu kelim she'esim behem halacha. To lend out utensils to a Gentile is allowed even on Friday, and even if they're utensils that are used for a malacha. So now, in a case when the Jew is lending to the Gentile a utensil before Shabbos, and he makes a condition that the Gentile will lend the Jew a utensil another time, because the Jew is lending the Gentile, and because the Jew is lending the Gentile a utensil now before Shabbos, he's telling the Gentile, you're going to lend me I'm doing this in order that you'll lend me a different time utensil. So even in such a case, it is permissible to lend on Friday. So we don't say in such a case that case would have the same law as renting, which would make it forbidden to do on Friday. Rather, that even lending a utensil in such a manner, when you make a condition that the Gentile has to lend you another time, it's still permissible to do on Friday.
Yes, I'm sorry. I have a question about this whole thing. Lending cooking utensils from a Gentile that can't be kosher. How are you going to use that in a Jewish kitchen?
So we're talking about lending any type of utensils. Doesn't have to be only for cooking, but let's say, okay. Well, we'll get to examples soon. Likewise, to rent utensils that aren't used for a forbidden labor is permissible even on Friday, as long as the Gentile takes the utensils out of the Jew's home before Shabbos. So what are examples of utensils that you're allowed to, what are examples of utensils that it's forbidden to lend on Friday? So I mentioned last week, it's, let's say, a car. It's something that's forbidden to use a car on Shabbos. So a car you would not be able to rent out on Friday. Now, another example, let's say a lawnmower. It's used to cut grass, which is forbidden to do on Shabbos. What are cases of things that are permissible? Let's say you want to rent out a book, or you want things that it's permissible to do on Shabbos. Now, an important note is that things that it's permissible to rent out on Friday are also utensils that it's forbidden to use them on Shabbos rabbinically. Even though it's forbidden to use on Shabbos, since it's only forbidden rabbinically, it's permissible to rent them on Shabbos. So let's say music instruments, a guitar, a flute. They are things that those are things that's only forbidden to use them on Shabbos rabbinically. So that you're allowed to rent on Shabbos. The rabbis didn't make this decree that you can't rent out utensils on Friday only to things that are forbidden biblically. But to things that only forbidden rabbinically, they said you're allowed to rent on Friday.
Rabbi?
Is a car forbidden by a rabbi or by biblically?
That's why that woman always screams.
Say that again. I didn't hear so clearly the question.
The car is forbidden rabbinically, not biblically, right?
It's the car is, yeah, biblically. There's a lot of different biblical
there was no
labors that are
cars
done
in the Bible time.
The car
There was
didn't.
no cars in the Bible time.
There weren't cars, but there are different labors that are done, which were already in the category of labors that were done in the time of the Bible, in the time of the Mishkan, where all the forbidden labors biblically are taken from.
So what is
instance,
not biblical? Give me an example of not biblical.
Playing an instrument, playing a guitar, is only forbidden rabbinically.
But there were guitars in time of the Bible. David was playing instruments.
It's not a work that's forbid that was. We're gonna have to get into. Okay. It's a different topic. We'll have to get into it later. But okay. Now let's move on to halacha 11. After we said that there are cases that you're allowed to rent out, you're allowed to rent things out over Shabbos. What does that mean? It seems to be saying you're able to make money on Shabbos. If rent out my car, and the car's and someone's paying me for this that I'm renting to him or her my car, I'm making money on Shabbos. How is that permitted? So this is where halacha 11 is going to tell us when is it permitted to when is it permitted to receive payment for Shabbos. Let's look inside halacha 11. This that it's permissible to rent out utensils to a Gentile in the above mentioned manners is dafka k'she'ein neitis chal Shabbos b'fnei atzmai ela bavla teich shar yamim. Specifically, when you're not receiving payment for Shabbos by itself, rather you're receiving payment together with other days. Kegain, for example, shemasker l'chodesh oy l'shvua. You rent out something for a month or for a week. Let's give the example of a car. You rent out a car for a month or for a week. And you tell the Gentile that I'm going to charge the price to rent out the car is going to be this amount for a week. Let's say $300 for the week, or $1,100 for the month. Or even if you're going to rent it out make a price for every 2 days of the rental or every 3 days of the rental, it's going to the price is it's going to cost a certain amount. Then, so in such a case, it's permissible, since you're not receiving payment just for Shabbos, but it's together with another day, with other days, or even just one other day. However, to receive payment for Shabbos alone by itself is forbidden to receive. Even if you're renting out your car for the whole year, but you charge each day separately. That you tell the Gentile, I'm renting something to you for a year or for a month, and for every day you're obligated to pay this amount. Even though later the Gentile pays for the entire rental at one time, so he's paying not just for Shabbos, but he's paying for even the days that aren't Shabbos at the same time that he's paying for Shabbos. Still, it's still forbidden to receive the payment that is coming for Shabbos. Since the arrangement of the rental is that each day has its own price, and it's forbidden to receive payment for Shabbos when it's not included in other days. And now we take it a step further. Even when you're getting paid for utensils that aren't used for forbidden labor. Let's say just you rented out a book, or you rented out whatever. Let's say you rented it. Yeah, there's plenty of other examples. There could be other examples. You rented out chairs. You have a company that rents out chairs. So someone rented out chairs for a week. They needed extra chairs, and you rented them chairs for a week. Even though it's permissible to use chairs on Shabbos, still, since that you're getting paid for if you set up an arrangement that Shabbos is being paid by itself, it will be forbidden to receive the payment that is coming for Shabbos. And even if you just rent out a room for someone else to live in it, if you're going to the rental is going to be set up in a way that every day is being paid by itself, every day is its own, you're charging every day separately, then it'll be forbidden to receive payment for Shabbos. And the prohibition of getting payment on Shabbos is whether you're getting paid from a Gentile or whether you're getting paid from a Jew. So there's a lot more to discuss besides what we saw in this to take it practical cases, practical implications. So firstly, nowadays, when people rent out things, they might rent it out for the day, which when they say I'm renting it out for a day, they're starting in the morning and it's going to end the next morning. So it's not just Shabbos, but it's also going to be the time after Shabbos. If I say I'm renting you, you could rent. I want you to rent. I'm renting out my home, and every day I'm going to charge a certain amount for you to stay in my home. They're saying the way that they set up the way people set it up is that Wednesday is going to be one day, Thursday is going to be a different day, Friday's a different day, Saturday's a different day. So Friday, in the day of Friday, is not only Friday night, but it's also before Shabbos, Friday, the whole time that's before Shabbos. So it's not when you're receiving payment for Friday, it's not just for the time the time of Shabbos, but it's also Friday that's before Shabbos. And this, let me just finish let me just finish, and you could ask in a short moment. And so too is with Shabbos. When you receive payment, when you receive for Shabbos, it's Shabbos and also Saturday night, which is when Shabbos ended. So you're receiving payment mixed together on Shabbos and of Shabbos and not on Shabbos. So if that's the way that it's agreed, then you could even do each day separately. But if you want to be that, so according to the law of Torah, you could even do it each day separately. If you want to do an extra thing, you could set up in a way of 2 days or other ways. But it could be permissible even if you do it each day separately, if that's the way that you're counting it by day to night and not from night to night. Sorry, from day to day and not from night to night. Yeah, go ahead.
Rabbi Yossi, do the rules change instead of individual renting out? What if it was a partnership or a corporation? Because you're talking about businesses, and I think rarely do individuals do it. They do it as some type of organized entity. How do the rules change for that?
It's much more complex. It's something that it could be different. I'm not exactly, there's much more to talk about when it's a business, and I think it has to be,
because with a corporation, it's its own entity. It's not Jewish. It's not goy. It's fictional, but as a legal entity, it exists.
Right. It's much more confusing. I'm not sure. It's a good point you're bringing up. It's much more, when it comes to a corporation, you have to look into it more.
But a Jew cannot profit from it.
Well,
if it's just an entity.
Okay, let me see.
Not profit from it on Shabbos.
So also, because of this idea that it's the day starts in the morning, when we count the day, we count it from morning to morning. It also makes it permissible to make interest off a bank if you have money in the bank. Since that, even if it's coming day by day, the money that you're making is day by day. It's not all. It's the money that you're making on Shabbos is also some of the day. Some of that money is part of the time that's not on Shabbos. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 73. Siman Ayin Gimel. Now we're going to move on to Siman Ayin Daled, chapter 74. This chapter will discuss traveling by boat on Shabbos, and we'll take it from there to other practical implications. Is one allowed to go on a cruise on Shabbos? Could a person be on a cruise on Shabbos? That's what let's try to figure. That's what we're going to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think yes, because the cruise is your temporary home. The boat is like your home because you're eating there and sleeping there. So I would think a cruise would be permissible to be on it on Shabbos.
Right. Okay. We're gonna have to see. So there, let's see. I hear good observation. It's a lot of we're gonna see. Very good point. You bring up a very good point that it's like your home. But let's see everything that comes along with it.
There's another aspect. If you get there onto the ship before the ship is ready to sail, you can sail. Let's say the ship is sailing at 4, but you get there at 2. You board the ship. You're not boarding the ship after it's sailing, but you're boarding before. So you can sail.
Okay, you guys are good. I hear. We're going to see. There might be some. There's something else. There's another aspect that we're going to see in this.
Or at least you have to. If it leaves after Shabbat, you still better be on board ship before Shabbat starts.
There's another aspect we're going to see in this.
You're also not allowed to leave the ship when it docks in a port on Shabbos.
That's right.
And also you have to be careful about carrying outside of your cabin.
Well,
There's a lot of all these points we're going to see. Let's start halacha aleph.
Carry it on that ship.
1
in an era.
Halacha 1 in chapter 74. Ein mafligin besfina alayam pachas mishlesh yomim kaidim Shabbos. One is not allowed to embark. One is not allowed to board a ship that's going in the sea, and the same law will be if the ship is going in the ocean when it's less than 3 days before Shabbos. Which means from Tuesday night, once it's sunset on Tuesday night and onwards in the week, it is forbidden to go on a ship. So what's the reason? Everyone, why is it that you're not allowed to go on a boat or as we were saying before we started learning this halacha, on a cruise before Shabbos if it's after Tuesday night, if it's Tuesday night or later? So there's two points that it's important that I want to mention. 2 reasons I want to mention. One is the idea of being seasick. It's very common to become seasick. And if a person is seasick lasts for 3 days. That's what the rabbis felt, that it lasts for 3 days. So the first 3 days of the journey, a person's going to be seasick, and that's going to take away from one's pleasure on Shabbos. It's a mitzvah to have Einik Shabbos, pleasure on Shabbos. And a person that is sick is going to be not having pleasure on Shabbos, but being in a state of discomfort. So therefore, you're not allowed to therefore you're not allowed to go on a boat that's in the sea, and likewise in the ocean when it's within 3 days to Shabbos. Another reason is because the last 3 days of the week before Shabbos is when one has to be careful of keeping Shabbos. That even they have to be careful and make a strategize how they're not going to be in a situation that's going to cause them to violate Shabbos by doing something earlier in the week. So in the case of a boat, being on a boat from Tuesday night and later in the week could cause one to need to take medication on Shabbos. If it could cause a person to be in a state of danger and might need to do so when a person is in a state of danger, it's permissible to do any type of malach, any type of forbidden labor on Shabbos, since one's life's in danger. But one's not allowed to, from the last 3 days of the week, put themselves in a situation that might lead them to need to do a malach on Shabbos. So that's the second reason. So now going back to about cruises. Could one go on a cruise on Shabbos? So if they board the cruise before Tuesday night, you could go on a cruise on Shabbos. There's one other thing that comes into the picture, and that is who's the owner and the sailor and who's driving the cruise. Who's the sailor of the cruise? If a Jew is the owner of the cruise or the sailor, it will be forbidden, because a Jew is not allowed to have is not allowed to do forbidden labor, and not allowed to have forbidden labor done with their utensils if they're going to be benefiting from it. They're not allowed to have benefit. Since they're the owner, they would get benefit. So if the ship is not owned if the cruise is not owned by a Jew, and it's not a Jewish driver, one driving the cruise, then it will be permissible to go on the cruise before Shabbos.
But Rabbi,
let me just give me one moment. I'm going to finish the end of the halacha, then you could ask your question.
Okay.
However, if one is traveling to do a mitzvah for the sake in order that the person could do a mitzvah, that's why they're going on a cruise. Then it's permissible to travel even on Friday. Does anyone know what would be the reason that it's permissible to go for a mitzvah even on a time when it's really even on Friday? Why are we allowing you to go on a cruise or any boat on Friday when it could cause a person which is going to cause a person not to have pleasure on Shabbos? What's the reason that we allow that? So the reason is because although a person's not going to have pleasure on Shabbos when they go on a boat on Friday, but since they're going to do a mitzvah, there's a rule. One that's involved in doing a mitzvah is exempt from another mitzvah. So at this moment, he's going and doing a mitzvah. He's exempt from keeping the mitzvah of having pleasure on Shabbos. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, the question is this. Supposedly, a non-Jew owns the company, owns the ship, but there are Jewish stockholders of that company which are listed on the exchange. Would you be forbidden then?
It's
This
similar.
guy is not.
Because the Jew would be profiting.
I don't know if that. I think that's permissible. I'm not exactly sure the it seems like it's a good question. Let me. It's a good question, but let's continue.
What if it's a plane ride? If you're taking a flight, can you take a flight?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
I first want to talk about something else that's very important, which is, since there's the idea of you have to be careful already by Tuesday night to be in a state of having pleasure on Shabbos, are you allowed to do a medical procedure on the last 3 days of the week before Shabbos? If the procedure is going to cause one to be in a stress or suffering, not being in a state of having pleasure on Shabbos, could one do a procedure during those days of the week? So, of course, first you have to know what is the medical advice. If the doctor says there's danger if you push off the procedure, any medical, whatever needs to be done medically, of course you do it when the doctor says it should be done. But in the case when it could be pushed off, the doctor says there should be something there's a procedure that you should do, but it doesn't have to be today or tomorrow. You could wait a week, you could wait a few days. Should one be careful? Does one have to be careful should one be careful not to do it the 3 days before Shabbos? So the answer is, if it's not going to cause a person any pain, if a person's in pain until the procedure's done, so they're anyways not having pleasure on Shabbos, so then they should do the procedure as soon as possible. But if it's not in a case that they're having any pain and it's not dangerous to push off the procedure, one should try to push off the procedure till that it's not during the last 3 days of the week. Since the last 3 days of the week, one should prepare oneself not to be in a state of not having pleasure on Shabbos. Yeah,
it's confusing.
Rabbi Yossi?
Should I repeat? I could bring, yeah.
I think most of these rules don't seem to apply to these cruises that are available today. Most of what you're saying applies to like when people were on sailboats where they didn't know what was going to happen from one moment to the next, or they might even have to help the existing crew, keep the ship stable. I mean, you're talking about people being nauseous. Ships have stabilizers. There's medication that people can take that lasts for 3 days as patches behind an ear. People don't go on these things if they feel as though they're going to be uncomfortable. These are pleasure cruises, and it's not something that will take away from the enjoyment of Shabbos. So I don't understand the relevance of some of these things.
Either do I.
It's very good point. Very good point, Mani. It's true. The nature of it, very true. 100% that the nature of the cruises nowadays are not. You don't have these. You don't have the possibility of these. You don't have these concerns that they had in the time of the Shulchan Aruch, of everything that you listed, of medical and needing to do any forbidden labors on Shabbos because that's to help out the crew, to help out the boat. But from my understanding is that since that they set up that I'm going to look into it, but from what I read, it seems that people say the same, that it applies to crews these days. My guess is once that the rabbis made a general statement that traveling in a sea The truth is, I want to look into it because I did see the idea that it's only when the sea is salty, according to the Alter Rebbe. It's only when the sea it's a salty sea where people get sick from it.
Just as one added item, there's organizations that have kosher cruises, and they schedule them for Pesach. So,
right. The question is, do they start 3 days before, or do they not?
But the thing
If
about
you're
starting
boarding,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Loretta.
If you're boarding in another port other than the port where the ship leaves from, let's say on a Monday or a Tuesday, is this a biblical law or halacha or rabbinic? Because there was a time, terrible time, when Jews were slaves by the Romans, and they commandeered and sailed their ships as slaves.
This is rabbinic. My
It
understanding.
is rabbinic.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know when it became a ruling, rabbinic ruling? Middle Ages or before?
It's discussed in the it's discussed in the Talmud. This halacha.
Oh, okay. Because then my second question is, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, I'm just trying to learn something beyond what I knew. People that came over during the exodus from Russia, the Orthodox Jewish people who went in steerage. Now the journey took sometimes a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And they observed Shabbos.
I'm just going to continue the class. I just want to keep on with the.
Oh, okay.
Keep on topic.
It is the topic.
No, yeah, I was just saying that there's a lot. Yeah, I just want to kind of keep moving that we could maybe. Okay. So.
Yeah.
Now. Okay, someone mentioned about planes. We're going to get to that in next halacha. Okay. Let's go to halacha base, halacha 2. Okay. Now we're going to speak about when you're going on a boat in a river, that there's a more lenient halacha. Al na'aris mutar lahaflik b'sfina b'chol inyan afilu b'erev Shabbos. Ubavad shelo yitzdarech ha'yisrael lases sham malacha b'Shabbos. So in rivers, it is permissible to board a boat in any manner, even on Friday, as long as a Jew is not going to need to do any forbidden labor on Shabbos. Even if animals are going to pull the boat, it is permissible. So now, here we see that rivers are more lenient. So maybe you could compare nowadays cruises to rivers. I hear the idea. I actually want to check into it. So before I speak about cruises nowadays, I want to point out that it seemed to me when I was learning this section of Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that cruises forbidden if you go on the last 3 days of the week, but I want to check it up. So hopefully next week I'll give a more of a conclusive answer and about cruises on the last 3 days of the week. Now let's speak about planes, cars, trains. So in many generations, this has been a conversation. Could you travel on Like we say that you could, there's the laws that you could be on a boat on Shabbos. But a plane, a car, and a train, just to keep it simple, is not really, in general, it's not really, in a regular situation, it can't be, it's not permitted. Very hard for it to be fine. Let's not, and one idea of what's, in a car, there's, we'll talk about a car first. A car, there's a lot of forbidden labors that's happening in a car. A light turning on, the gas, there's so many different things that I'm not sure all the different things, but I've heard that there's plenty of possibilities of doing a forbidden labor in a car. And this, so
The engine is running.
every time that the car has to stop by a red light and then
Right.
push on the gas pedal is a new forbidden labor.
Well, what
Right.
about these new cars that are self-driving? Then
Bravo.
you're not doing anything. I mean, you could like pre-program it before Shabbos to take you someplace.
You'd have to pre-program it to start itself too, just like you
Yeah.
somehow.
These new cars that
Okay,
drive.
I'm not sure about the new car, the new cars. Also, so a plane has also very, very difficult situations. Just going to the bathroom, you're going to have to turn on the light. And there's a problem of, we're going to see soon about tchum, going out of the Shabbos boundaries. The same as with there's also just the problem, as we mentioned in last class, of marizayin, it's called in Hebrew, which means that others are going to think that you're doing something forbidden. So it's going to look,
None of their damn business.
people are going to think that that you are doing something forbidden, and people might learn that think that this is permissible. And but let's even put that idea aside. It's not in the, it's not a way that you could, in short, it's not a the rabbi said that you can't do these things on Shabbos. Let's go on to halacha.
Rabbi, if you were traveling to, let's say, go to a wedding that's out of state, or, wherever you have to travel to, or God forbid, let's say a funeral, are those rules bent, as you said that they may be, like in the medical procedure?
If something is life-threatening, then you're allowed to do forbidden labors on Shabbos. So,
but if you were traveling to, like I say, get to, a burial plot on Sunday, you had to be there.
I think it won't be permissible, but I think you would have to wait till after Shabbos, probably. I think so. Let's go to halacha 3. Halacha 3 is going to talk about a case when someone boarded a boat before Shabbos, and then the boat got delayed. Let's say there was something, because of weather or something else, the boat got delayed, and the person left the boat after Shabbos began. Is the person allowed to go back on the boat on Shabbos?
Probably not.
Let's see. Where that it is in a case when it's permissible to board a boat on Friday. If one entered the boat on Friday and stayed in the boat until nightfall of Shabbos, even though the person went back home and slept in their home, in the person's home, The law is mutter likanis ba achar kach b'yom haShabbos. It is permissible to re-enter the boat on afterwards on Shabbos. Ubilvad shaloi telech hasfina b'shvol Yisraelim lachot, which is a very important idea, which also applies to the previous halachas, previous laws. It's provided that the boat isn't going just for Jews. So too in a cruise, it has to be that the cruise isn't just going for Jews. It's going also for Gentiles. However, since the person was in his house on Shabbos, that person acquires dwelling as they were living in their house on Shabbos, that they were dwelling in their house on Shabbos. V'lechein im hocha asfina yeser mitchum Shabbos, uva b'Shabbos le'yavasha ein lo sham ela arba ames. And therefore, if the boat goes out of the Shabbos limits, which the Shabbos limits are 2,000 ames, 2,000 cubits, past the city, outside the city, which is roughly around 3,000 feet outside the city. So a person is not allowed to go more than 4 cubits, which is around 6 feet, when the boat lands. Now, more than 6 feet would be forbidden to go. This is talked about more in chapter 95. So let me just explain this idea in short, that there's the laws of going out of the Shabbos boundaries. A person is not allowed to go out of Shabbos boundaries we're not going to get into the reasons for that. It's a totally different topic. But going out of, since that one is not allowed to go out of the Shabbos boundaries, if the boat goes out of the Shabbos boundaries, one is not allowed to when the boat arrives, gets to the dock, when the boat gets to the dock, one can't go outside the boat, or one should remain on the boat until Shabbos ends. It's a whole different discussion, just mentioning a little bit of it here, but it's really, you need a lot to explain to understand the reason behind it. And we're not going to get into it. Now, if a person was entered the boat before Shabbos, then if the boat remained higher than 30 inches above the bottom of the sea, there was 30 inches below there was 30 inches from the bottom of the boat until the bed of the sea, then it's permissible to, then you would be able to, you wouldn't have this rule that you're only able to go 6 feet when the boat arrives. But there are difficulties of a boat arriving on Shabbos, so therefore it's better to try to, if you're going to cruise or something like that, to have it that it doesn't arrive on Shabbos. Let's just finish this chapter. We have one halacha left. To go on a boat on Shabbos, you're first entering the boat on Shabbos. If you're entering for the sake of a mitzvah, let's say to daven with a minyan or for another mitzvah, if the boat is traveling also for the sake of others besides Jews, there are those that say it's permitted. And nevertheless, it's preferable for a Jew to enter into the boat on Friday during the daytime and to stay in the boat until nightfall. And afterwards, it's permissible. And afterwards, he's able to go back to his house. And after he's in his house, go back on Shabbos to the boat. But if the boat is just going for Jews alone, it is not permissible in any situation, even if you're traveling to do a mitzvah. So in short, we see in this halacha that there's an opinion that holds you could go on Shabbos you could enter a boat, you could board a boat on Shabbos if you're going for a mitzvah, but it's better to go before Shabbos on the boat and stay on the boat till Shabbos begins, which is stay there till nightfall. And afterwards, you could go back home and re-enter the boat on Shabbos. Now, it's important to mention that the Alter Rebbe, the Chabad custom, Alter Rebbe's opinion, which is the Chabad custom, the Chabad opinion, is that one shouldn't enter a boat on Shabbos, whether he's doing it for a mitzvah or you enter the boat before Shabbos and then the boat got delayed and so you went back home. You should still not re-enter the boat on Shabbos. That's the Alter Rebbe's opinion. So that's the end of chapter 74. And next week, we're going to look.
We can't see you or hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
I'll take
You disappeared.
I'll take some questions. Yeah, if anyone has a question or wants to, last couple minutes.
Rabbi Yossi.
Yeah.
Do you know and the details with the Rebbe and I think it was Zin shipping in Eretz Yisrael, and there was a whole thing whether they were doing a malach or they weren't, and the Rebbe said that the Rabbanim that are saying that you can go,
Yeah.
They don't understand shipping. You want to take over? I'd like to hear this.
Okay.
If you have a minute.
I'll say what I know. I can't say I know everything.
So would I.
So there was I don't know exactly when this was, but that there was a boat from Israel to Europe, to America or Europe, different places, and there's, like we learned today, there's the law of if the boat is going for a mitzvah, it is permissible to go on a boat before Shabbos. So, right, that's what we learned today, that if the boat's going before Shabbos, and you're allowed to go even later than, even on Friday, you're allowed to board a boat if you're going for a mitzvah. So we're saying that going to Israel is a mitzvah, which is true. Going to Israel is a mitzvah. So you're allowed to go from America, you could go on a boat from America to Israel on Friday. The problem in this case is what the Rebbe was saying, which the Rebbe was an engineer, so he went to college, he knew engineering, is that the boat is doing actual forbidden labors on Shabbos. And when a boat is doing forbidden labors on Shabbos, it can't be owned by a Jew, like we mentioned in today's class. So other rabbis didn't know that there was actual forbidden labors on a boat. So that was the dispute that the Rebbe was having with the other rabbis.
I don't understand what you mean about a boat doing forbidden labor. A boat is an inanimate object.
Right. So if a person is turning on using electricity to run the boat, for the boat to move, the person causing the boat to move is doing a forbidden labor.
Yeah.
Well, why would going to Israel give permission
be done would be a
to
better
do
way.
forbidden labor on Shabbos?
It doesn't. That's exactly the point. They didn't realize that there was actual forbidden labor being done.
No, but you said previously that if you were doing a mitzvah, you were allowed to do it
Right.
on Shabbos.
Okay, maybe I was sorry, I want to correct myself. If you're doing a mitzvah, you're allowed to travel on Friday, as opposed to, you're allowed to board the boat on Friday, as opposed to if it wasn't a mitzvah, you'd only be able to board before 3 days before Shabbos, on Tuesday.
But not on Shabbos.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to board on, you're not allowed to board on Shabbos, even if it's for a mitzvah.
Right. Okay.
Unless,
I misunderstood.
yeah. Okay. No.
Rabbi, I think that the new thing here with the Rebbe was that the other, because like you said, the Rebbe was new engineering, and the other rabbis were taking the word of the Israeli shipping company, Zin. They had a whole scientific explanation how there was no malacha involved. And the Rebbe said that the rabbis that are agreeing with the shipping company don't understand how the ship works, according to engineering and according to halacha. So it was like a big thing, because the Rebbe usually never got involved in halachic things. He let the Rabbanim do this, but here he had a personal knowledge, and he said, "This is what's happening."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for adding that point. I forgot about. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
But if you had an all Gentile crew turning the ship on,
Right.
working the ship, no Jew would work on the ship, period.
Right.
But they would be sailing on the ship.
So then it
Like
would depend.
certain Orthodox organizations hire for Pesach X amount of cabins, and they have noted rabbis going, et cetera, and they're partaking in pleasure on Shabbos. But they don't do anything concerning work, or they don't leave the ship on Shabbos.
Right.
Is that permissible?
If there's no Jews doing work on the ship, and the ship is not owned by a Jew or so on, then it's permissible.
So they could take an around the world cruise.
Right?
All
Yeah.
the goyim are slaves of the Jews.